So I want to run an analysis and see if I have outliers in my data. And an outlier is a value that is extreme in comparison to the rest of the values that you see in your data set. So one way that you can determine if you have an outlier value is through the z-score. And the z-score ranges from -3 to +3. So anything outside of these ranges then or this range is going to be considered an outlier. So this is one way of doing this. And so the z-score formula is right here. So you have to uh, first get the average of whatever variable that you're interested in, and then whatever the data point is from that data set, subtract it from the average, and then divide that by its standard deviation. So here's another measure that you would have to calculate first. Now there is the standardized function on Excel that will take care of all of this. So if I want to compute the z-score, right? So let me go ahead and type in z right here. And I'm going to hit the equal sign and type in standardize. And I have three arguments that I need to plug in. It's going to be the X value. So I'm only focusing on the first record here. Then the mean, then the standard deviation. Now, there are all three of these columns here I can compute the z-score for. But what I'll do is I will compute the z-score for the market value that we see right here. And what I'll show you before I begin is that I ran some measures of location. So I do have the mean for these columns. I also have the standard deviation. So this is the measure of dispersion, right? This is the how much it varies. So if we have a standard deviation of 10,553, and this is in terms of dollars, we're referring to this column right here, which represents the market value. So we're saying that these houses vary about $10,553, right? And the average in terms of the price is about 92,069. So going into the z-score, let me go ahead and plug in these values. So I'm going to type in standardize and focus on that first value, 90,000. Then for the mean, that's going to be down here. That's already been computed. So I selected that, and I'm going to select, I'm going to select F4 on my keyboard so I can get the absolute reference for this cell. So you can see that with the dollar signs being placed. And then I am going to select the standard deviation. So the standard deviation is right here. And I'll hit enter. Well, before I hit enter, I want to make sure that, I accidentally hit enter, so it's fine. I'm just going to go ahead and put the dollar sign before and after the letter C, right? So I want an absolute reference here. And that's because when I drag this down, I don't want this value to shift down. I want it to stay the same, right? So I could also make that cell a name range, and that'll work too. I will have about, I'll keep it to 3 decimal places, and then I'll drag this down and get these z-scores for all of these here. I'm going to do the filter option, and I'm going to select largest to smallest. So this is the largest z-score that we have. So it's not outside of the boundaries that we have here. I'm going to go all the way down to see the z-scores down here. So there's -1.466, and that still doesn't go outside the boundaries here. So there are no outliers when it comes down to the market value. Let's say, for example, we want to compute the descriptive statistics, at least some measures, in a data set like this, but what we're interested in is calculating, say, for example, the average and the standard deviation for the different regions, right? So we could possibly do a filter and do subtotals and things like that. But when you have a data set that looks something like this, and you have a categorical variable off to the left-hand side, you're probably going to be able to use the pivot table option. Now, let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, go to Pivot Tables, and I'm going to make sure that the table range text box is going to select all of that data. So everything that I have here down to the last record, I want that selected. And then I want to display that information in the same worksheet. I don't want a different worksheet. I'll say place that right there. I'm going to press OK. So then I have the pivot table fields here, and I can go ahead and drag and drop, and then select whatever type of descriptive statistics that I'm interested in. So if I wanted to get the average for each region, then what I'll do is I'm going to grab that region and drag it down there to rows. So there it is. each distinct value that's inside region is presented right here. Then I'm going to get the variable that has the numeric value. And so here's the amounts. So I'm going to select that one on my pivot table. So see if I click off of that, my pivot table pane goes away. I'm going to click on the pivot table. It's there. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to drag it into values. And by default, it does a sum. And what I'm interested in is various descriptive stats. One of them happens to be the mean. So then I'm going to go right here under values, that drop down, select value field settings, click on average in this window, and I can give it a name. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as is. And I'm going to press OK. So now this changes to the average. Now I'm going to do some formatting. That looks better. Now I can go ahead and bring this same variable back inside to the values and then select a different type of measure. So let's say I want the standard deviation. Then I'll select that one. If I was dealing with the population data set, then I would select this one. But almost all the time you're dealing with a sample. So I'm going to press OK, and I have everything formatted, and I get the standard deviation. Now, if I was interested in just getting the statistics for all of the values that are right here, then I could use the descriptive stats add-in, right? So if I go to data analysis, this is something that you would have to make sure that you have added in. And just to demonstrate again, the way that you would add that in is you would go to File, and then from File, you would select the options. And from options, you would go ahead and go to add-ins, go all the way down, and under the Manage dropdown where it says Excel add-ins, go, then select the Analysis Tool Pack, and then press OK. And then you'll be able to locate the data analysis. You just have to do this once. And then from there, you have a bunch of different analysis tools that you can select from. If I want to do descriptive stats on this entire column, I can go ahead and do that by just pressing OK. And I will select the column, the entire column. So let's see. Let me go ahead and select all of that. And then since I did select the entire column, I am also selecting the label. So I'll make sure that this is checkmarked, and I'll want to display that information. I'm going to display it right here and make sure that the summary statistics is checkmarked. It's okay. And then I get the information. This is descriptive statistics, all related to the data, this data right here, all the information in here. So it's going to be different from what we see here, because here we're able to kind of dissect it a little bit and get the measures per category. We can make a report, right? Like we can say, for example, that the average amount of cells, right? The average amount of cells is about $50.29. The median is $21.25. But then when you start looking into the categories, the different regions, and look at those sales amounts, you can see that the East Coast has a higher sales amount, then followed by South, followed by West and North. So if I want to sort these out to data and then select this, and I'm going to go ahead and do it in descending order. So now it's based off of the average sale amount. And I could also do a custom type of sort by selecting the row, and then once it's all selected, if I hover over the highlight and I have that solid arrow going up and down, left to right, left click and then drag, I can drag it to a specific row. So I'm not limited to just the ascending order and things like that. So we could probably go away with this grand total and put a different label, or you can just remove it all together.